Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, brother?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
And action.
What's happened?
Oh man, you messed
rewind.
with Mojo right off the bat. I'm gonna start this all over.
Oh, this one's going to be a rough one, folks. But anyways, welcome to this week's episode of the Pod Street Bullies. Thank you, Matt Casey, for absolutely effing me. My name is Derek.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
And I'm going to make Matt Casey wait until the end here. Hoagie is with us here as well.
Introduce him twice.
Well,
Boys, what is going on?
glad to see you're still alive. That's always a positive.
Barely.
In some of our cases. Matt Casey.
I need no introduction. Let's get going. I'm going to pick up for Hoagie's lack of enthusiasm tonight. I'm coming in firing hot.
Aren't you shocked that Hoagie's lacking enthusiasm?
Hoagie, just give everybody the reason why.
Because he's
Screw you, John. Our boy over at 5 Minute Major finally had his wedding, and I was a groomsman, and things got a little rowdy last night.
Just as a player comp, Hoagie now looks like Rickety Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
It does look a little bit like Rickety.
Rickety Cricket.
He went from our sweet, clean shaven boy to now just looking like a homeless guy. It's great.
We always have a different comparison for Hoagie. None of them are good ever. We're never complimenting this guy.
Kudos for you for making it though. Way to go.
And congrats, Dave.
I'm glad it's not me anymore. When it was just John and I caught the brunt of all of this. So thanks, Hoagie. I appreciate it, my friend.
Absolutely, someone's got to take it. At least at least the mustache is gone, right?
Yeah, it spins around every week. It's like a roulette wheel. Last week or 2 weeks ago, it landed on John because he was on vacation. Air quotes.
I was in jail.
I think that actually lasted 2 weeks. The week before it was me because I was drinking with my neighbors, and so I got all sorts of
That's right.
So now it's on Hoagie. Derek, you just wait, my friend.
I mean, to be fair, though, I know we should probably get into this show, but to be fair, it's always on Hoagie. I mean, it's a Hoagie bashing fest all the time. I think Derek might be frozen.
Yeah, we definitely lost Derek. Yep. He just texted us, lost you guys.
Oh, well.
All right.
Sucks to suck, Derek. I guess I'm taking the reins then, huh?
Let's go for it.
All right. Well, good thing I read the rundown.
Right.
Well, I think one of the things we should just get right off the bat, because I don't think there's a ton to say, but there was a little bit of news today, right? The Flyers sign Noah Cates, soon to be college free agent if they didn't sign him, from the University of Minnesota Duluth. They signed him to a 2-year ELC. I think it's worth, it's right there on the screen, $925,000. So I'm not really sure if anybody has any thoughts here. Casey, I'm assuming you don't.
No. All I know is this guy's a brother in the organization too, and hey, I'm all about the brothers. Let's go.
Right. If we're gonna stink, we might as well bring family aboard.
Stick
right?
with the family, right? I mean, you tell me, where's he compared to Jackson, his brother? Because we have seen a little small dose of them.
He's a better Jackson Cates for sure. I mean, he was a drafted Cates. But again, he's another one of those guys where it's like fourth line. They're really what?
You've got a plethora of them.
Yeah, I mean, I said this off the show before you came on, Casey. I almost feel like this is one of those deals where it's like we want to say fourth liner because it's like we like the guy, we want him to be good, but like he could never, actually hold his water in the NHL.
So we're talking like a Lindblom third liner type, huh? Can't quite put it together.
Yeah. Hoagie, what about you? Any thoughts on this?
Not really. I mean, it's just another depth guy that, from what you've said, I mean, he can put the puck in the net from what I've seen of his stats. But I mean, he's in college, and college is different than NHL,
top line guy in college,
right?
Captain.
I just don't think it translates.
Another guy with a letter on his chest. Whoop-de-doo.
Did us
Minnesota
so well
boy.
this year.
Minnesota boy.
Oh,
Shocker.
All right. Derek, I'll give you the reins again, man. You can tell us if you have any thoughts about this.
not much, honestly. I mean, like Casey, like you said, it's just a better Jackson Cates, and he's swimming in a sea of fish just like him. Bottom six potential. Yeah, I don't see this guy cracking the top six. Another two-way guy. Surprise. We've got how many of them already? Not really blown away by anything he's done so far. I mean, 39 goals, 60 assists in 4 years.
Doesn't have much to say. He's just going to rattle off his entire stat sheet.
Pretty much.
He was a fifth round pick. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Seventh.
Seventh? No, fifth.
Yep.
Fifth.
I
think
thought I
it's
just
fifth.
read seventh.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never trusted your reading before.
Yeah, thanks, John.
No, I just,
You're welcome.
again, anxious to see what he can do, sure.
Right.
John and I talked about it off the air. Like, the contract kind of doesn't make sense to me, but it could just be something I'm not aware of. He signed this year and next at the max for $925K. Like, I'm wondering why it wasn't a 3-year ELC, but who knows? Whatever. We'll see what he can do.
Like I said, I think it's because he would have been a free agent. Like, this was his last year of college eligibility. So I'm just assuming that has something to do with it, but I don't really know. I am happy they signed him, though. He is somebody that I'd like to see what he can do. I'm just not too hopeful.
I hit the nail on the head.
There you go.
Moving on.
So you want me to take the reins from here on out?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Until
Well, now
we
that I'm
drop-
back
we
and
drop
my
again.
internet's not complete crap, we're going to get into the games from this past week. Again, nothing flashy. At least the Flyers, they're looking all right. Okay. They're looking okay, I should say. We're looking at games against Detroit, St. Louis, Colorado. Lost 6-3 against Detroit, who's really kind of in the
Better
same
number.
boat. Beat the Blues, which was great, fun game. Lost to Colorado, which was expected. I mean, no point in really going on, but any general observations from these games, John?
I mean, I've enjoyed watching this team more than I've had in the past. Maybe it's just because I'm looking towards the future and trying to get excited about the future, but I do think players like Kevin Hayes, Travis Konechny, even Ivan Provorov, paired up with Cam York has looked a little bit better. So I think there's been glimmers of hope. The games against Detroit, man, you can't lose a season series to the Detroit Red Wings. I don't care how bad you are. So to me, that's
a team that just lost 11-2 today. That doesn't
Right.
happen.
right.
Right.
Who was it that Mo Seider just completely leveled that was coming after him? Like,
Lindblom.
it was Lindblom.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh
I
my
saw
God.
that video today where he barely put his hand on Lindblom's hip and he just fell over. Like,
Well, no, someone was coming in for a hit, and Seider was along the near boards, and Seider passes it and then just shoves him, just really leveled him. It looked like. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that dude's a superhuman. Like, what a freak.
yeah.
Or it just could be the fact that nobody on the Flyers is that tough.
But anyway, I do the cutting off, everybody. No one cuts me off, remember? It's part of the contract.
Oh, right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Wait, you guys get paid for this?
No, we have contracts. I didn't say we get paid. They're just to make us feel good about each other.
Oh, okay, sure.
I drew up John's. John drew up mine.
Right.
You know,
Literally
just
drew
crayon,
it up.
right?
Crayon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You work for me now.
I think the St. Louis game, it was nice to get a win, but they didn't have their best game that night, the Blues. They definitely didn't play their best game. And then Colorado, was it 50 shots or something like that?
Something unreal.
Holy man. And right now we're looking at the first quarter of a football game score, right? Against the Preds. But hey, listen, to me, I'm seeing some things that I like And I think that's good enough at this point. Players that I want to start to see play better seem to be playing better.
Mm-hmm. What are you thinking, Matt Casey?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it for me are the players that we were expecting to step up, not named Claude Giroux, actually finally stepping up. And that is TK, that's Hayes. I still want him out of here, but like JVR, he netted another one tonight. He had one against Colorado before things got really out of hand. So I think it's, you see some guys at least trying to come back into form. It's I guess a little bit reassuring. They have every right to mail it in. This team's going nowhere this year, but you see them really scrapping and trying to play spoiler and like trying to embrace that role. And so in that realm, I'm okay with them keeping it competitive, and it is fun hockey to watch, even though it's just meaningless. That Colorado game, we could have been playing our top forwards for the last 6 years, and that situation still would not have been beneficial for us. Back to back going into Colorado, who is just sitting there and waiting for 4 days. So I don't know. In Colorado, right? So. Yeah, I mean, so good to see him keep scrapping, but obviously everybody knows that more changes are coming.
Imagine how bad that game would have been if Claude Giroux would have allowed a trade to Colorado.
Yeah.
Shane will never see him this season. We don't play Florida again.
I'm sure that went into it too.
Yeah. Right. He's like, oh, I don't have to play the Flyers again this season. That'd be great. Hoagie, what do you think, man, from these games?
Like Casey said, it's nice to see these guys step up into roles because they're not just waiting on Claude Giroux to score. You have your Konechny's, your JVRs, your Hayes actually stepping up and being productive. I'll be honest, I haven't watched a game since Giroux's 1000th until Friday night. So just watching that Colorado game, I was like, this is exactly why I don't want to watch this team, because it's just bad. It's just bad hockey. It's brutal to watch. I mean, we were up 3-0 today against Nashville, and they came back and tied it 3-3. And it's just like, yep, that sounds so flyer. It's just we're just so used to it at this point. I'm gonna try to start watching a couple more throughout the end of the season, but I mean, it's tough to watch. I don't think we're gonna win many more games.
Sure.
One thing I'm noticing, and I'm wondering if you all notice it too, but for whatever it means, this team seems to buy into what Yo's selling. They seem to be a lot more engaged than I think they were under Alain Vigneault. Now, I don't think that means anything other than, hey, this is an observation for the end of the season, because this guy's not going to be the head coach next year. But it does seem like there's a slight more of a buy-in to what he's bringing.
I would agree with that. I think the issue is that when you change coaches mid-season, like, you need more than just like, an eventual buy-in with 20 games left. It's like you need that thing. Mm-hmm. But I from everything that I've heard, the locker room really likes Yo. He's a player's coach, is that the term? Right. I don't think anybody has a delusion that he's going to be here next year, including us. But I wouldn't hate it if he was kept on as an assistant. I don't know if that'll happen. I don't know if he'll want that. But it seems, at the very least, he is a respected guy behind the bench, even though the results just haven't been there.
Right. He was tasked with such a difficult situation, too. I mean, you're taking over for a guy like Vigneault, who arguably is one of the better coaches we've seen in our era of hockey. Mm-hmm. The success that he had with New York, the success that he had with Vancouver.
Don't put Casey into that category, because remember, he's ancient.
John, Hoagie in my era, I should say.
I was around for the Hitchcock era, boys. It was fun.
Way to date yourself.
Yeah, but a lot of people around for the Hitchcock era. That guy, I mean, is he still coaching? He's like 100.
No.
He was a couple of years ago, wasn't he?
He was with St. Louis for a long time, right?
He was. Was he with Dallas?
He was with Dallas for a little bit.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect this team to just flat out lay on their back and just take a beating the rest of the season, because there were too many games left after Vigneault got fired. So is it nice to see? Absolutely. But like, the season's lost no matter what. I think it's just has left a bitter taste in my mouth, because you come into a season with expectations of a guy like Ellis being able to be the perfect complement to Ivan Provorov. That didn't work out. Ellis is hurt. Still doesn't know if he's getting surgery or not. What the hell's going on? Anyways, Couturier's hurt. All these injuries mount up, frustrations, everything. I mean, we're grasping at straws with like rumors that are coming out about like Provorov being this type of guy that we don't. No one. I don't even know. Like I don't even know where to go with this.
Save it.
It's frustrating. Yeah, like we've got more to talk about in terms of him, but like Yo staying on as an assistant, absolutely. I think that'd be great. You've got a great channel to a head coach as long as they're on the same page. Players can, vent their frustrations, talk to people, like, you know what I mean. The communication waves are open. No way in hell he stays here as a head coach. But I find it more and more difficult to believe that he might even stay on as an assistant coach because there might be another team that comes calling that wants him to be the head coach.
Yeah, the AHL, like I don't know who in the right mind would want.
He's not going
like,
to some.
Mike Yo's our guy,
right?
Although Hackstall got another job. So,
but if you have an assistant coach on the Flyers as opposed to an assistant coach on the Rangers or the Minnesota Wild, I don't know. He's going to go somewhere else. The Flyers aren't the destination that they used to be, not just with players but with coaches now. So.
Well, we'll see. I mean, he's not going to be here this year, and I agree, or next year. I agree that I wouldn't be sad if he left either. It's like, let's just wipe the slate totally.
Sure.
Let's just empty the cabinet and start.
It's that blank check, baby.
There you go.
I think there was, I think for me, though, the bigger point that I'm trying to make is I think at least when the team didn't ever seem to buy into AV, this season, last season, I started to get really concerned that the players themselves were just not going to buy into any coach, that there was an issue with this group and coaching. So it's not a, hey, maybe this guy should stay on. It's like, oh, thank God they seem to actually connect with some sort of coach, which is a good sign, right?
And I think they probably got rid of some of the players that didn't connect, that were like, we're part of that problem.
Yeah.
So,
but which players are connecting to? I mean, are you looking at the guys that they're bringing up out of necessity from the AHL that
for sure,
kind of have to connect? Your Jerry Mayhews, your Max Willmans, your those types of guys. Or are you looking at the rostered veterans like the Kevin Hayeses? You could call TK and Provorov, those guys, as the veterans on the team. Are they the ones connecting? Like that? That's where I stand on that, because it could be that the kids have to connect, and it could be that Yo kind of has to.
It just looks like a holistic buy-in to what I'm seeing on the ice. They seem to, be fighting a lot more. They seem to be laying it out all on the ice a lot more. It's like they're playing for this guy, which I don't think we could have said for AV, especially towards the end. And I don't think we should go further.
I agree.
Right. Yeah.
Unless we backtrack, 4 months back to when AV was fired. There's just no point. But, we alluded to it earlier. We're going to get back into the stay or go type topics here with some of the players that are still on the team after the trade deadline, after everything else as well. We've got two guys that we're going to touch on today. Time dependent. We might touch on a third here, but the two kind of feed off of each other, if you will, when it comes to this type of topic. We're going to touch on Ivan Provorov, and we're going to touch on Travis Sanheim tonight. So you've got our perennial, quote unquote, number one defenseman, Ivan Provorov. And then you've got a guy like Travis Sanheim who, for all intents and purposes, pretty good defenseman. In my opinion, I'd like to see more consistency. But regardless, two left-handed defensemen, staying or going. Let's start with Provorov. And I know these are going to intertwine, so we can obviously tackle them both at once. But in terms of need, in terms of which player makes the most sense to stay or go, or both stay or go, John, take the floor. What do you think?
Well, to me, you're not getting rid of both of them. But I do think that this team is going to get rid of one of them. And in my mind, it's going to be Provorov. None of us are obviously in the locker room. We're not connected to the team. But there has been a lot of reports, that you see on Twitter where he's not happy. He might be a bit of a problem. He might be sensitive. There's all these questions about, what's the deal? Why can't he ever succeed on the top line without, kind of his anchor? And maybe some of it's smoke, but typically where there's smoke, there's fire. And I just feel like he's the one with baggage when Sanheim doesn't really have that. I think that you could potentially get a decent haul for Provorov, and you really can give your decor a facelift. So to me, Provorov goes.
Okay. If we're going to keep with that game, if one goes, one stays. Hoagie, do you have any dissenting opinion upon who stays and who goes?
Don't use big words for Hoagie.
Do you agree or disagree with John?
Hold on, I got to look it up.
Do your views align with John?
No, I kind of agree. I think Provorov will probably be that guy, mainly just based off his play over the past year or two, because we're concerned that he needs a number one defense, like a number one right-handed defenseman to really shore up his game. And granted, Ellis was hurt all season. We didn't even get to see them really play except for 4 games, but we can't just keep banking on having a defenseman paired with him to really elevate his game. So I think he'll be the one to go, just in terms of a change of scenery for him, so that he can just elevate his game to a whole new level and not be, a cancer or whatever he is to his locker room. We don't know. We're not there, but like John said, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, I would have probably a month ago, my answer would have been different. But I think number one, Sanheim has actually played incredibly well, despite all the to show that we've seen the last this past year. But also, I've heard that there is interest in Provorov. There was at the trade deadline. I heard there was the last offseason as well. I think if you can get a big haul for Provorov, you do it.
What's a big haul in your opinion, Casey?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's a good question, though, right? Because what are you trying to get back for him?
I think you need to get a top round. God, do you go like multiple top round picks in successive years? Like, I mean, you need something legit to pull that through. I don't even know if we want a roster player. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'm not sure, but I'm also thinking in trade deadline terms, not necessarily like hockey trade terms.
Sure.
So this could be a change of scenery off-season move, with another team that is looking for another change of scenery guy. So I think it can look in any way, shape, or form. It just matters of who you're dealing with right now. But I think you need to have, in my mind, what I want out of this is like if you're not getting a top-ish pairing defenseman, then you're getting the draft picks where you can then leverage that into getting that with a separate trade.
And clear the cap space.
Right.
How skewed is our outlook on Provorov right now, though? Because think about it in terms of what we've built him up to be from the moment that he arrived here in Philadelphia. He was our bona fide number one guy. He's not. Let's just be honest. He's a good defenseman. He's a very good defenseman. He's not a Drew Doughty in his prime. He's not a Duncan Keith in his prime. In terms of trading him and getting value back, what are we expecting to get back? Because we're not going to get, I really don't see it being a 2 first-round picks type of deal. I don't see us being able to even get a first and a solid enough defenseman in return, because not only has his play not been great as of late, well, I should say as of late he's been much better, but lump it all together with this season contributed to whatever variable you might with the team being bad. But are we maybe thinking that we're asking a bit too much in return?
Here's my thing. One of the biggest assets that these players have, and I think we can all really appreciate this year especially, is availability. And Provorov, with the exception of a bogus, a COVID sideline, or a testing sideline, that guy hasn't missed a game in God knows how long. And it's because he's a physical freak. Like he works out nonstop all summer. Like he doesn't leave the ice. And so I think if you're looking for a guy who's playing borderline, 28 minutes a night, and doesn't have to be your number one guy, but can be the 2-3 guy versus a 1-2 guy. I do think that if a team is looking for that, you can get it. The other thing that I like as well is we've seen what like a unicorn these right shot physical defensemen are, and I feel like assuming Ellis gets healthy, we have like two really solid right-handed top four defensemen. I feel like the lefties are a little bit more easy to come by, and so if we're moving Provorov, we might be able to get somebody maybe not better, but maybe with a higher ceiling than Provorov. Because right now, I think we have seen his ceiling.
And I think too, right? You're looking at it as the Flyers need to shake things up. They need to shake up their D. They need to shake up their forward group. If you take the view of if next season we lay another egg, we have to blow it up. Sanheim's off the books. Where it's like he is no longer a problem. You don't have to try to get rid of him. Hopefully the team's not in that position, but you have to
be a deadline deal,
right? Where you can grab some assets. But if you're blowing it up and you still have Provorov on the hook for what is it until 2026?
Like 3 more years.
25. Oh, see, it's right down there. Look at that.
Do all this goddamn work.
Right when our third round draft picks come into play.
Oh yes.
So yeah, but I'm with you, Casey. I think that there would be someone out there willing to pay a premium. I really don't know what that looks like, and maybe it's like, hey, we're not gonna get a bona fide top pairing guy, but maybe we can find someone that we feel could gel well with Ellis and that top pair. But they only have 2 more years on their deal. Right. It's like, okay, if this doesn't work, like this is going to be a defense by committee and not necessarily our top pairing is like a top pair. Not saying that works and that's a great idea, but I think they can get creative and get a decent haul.
To touch on your point about that haul though, and some team being willing to pay that, do you trust Chuck Fletcher enough to maximize that return given this past deadline? Now, Giroux trade discounted. We all know those circumstances, but given his past deals between the offseason, between trade deadlines, whatever it is, do you trust Chuck Fletcher to be able to maximize that type of return and capitalize on a team that would be willing to pay that premium?
I mean, considering that his deals have led to nothing positive yet, it's hard to say yes in my mind. But I'm also not at the point where I find that he's incompetent either.
Right.
We haven't abandoned all hope yet.
Right. Like, I mean, the guy got this job because he clearly knows what he's doing to a certain extent. I think that, it's not going to be like Provorov. I don't think he's going to be like, I have to get rid of Ivan Provorov, and
otherwise he would have already.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be all I'm going to get is a second round pick. I got to pull the trigger. Like, if it's not a deal he doesn't like, he's not going to go for it.
You got 3 more years to deal with the guy if need be.
Right.
I think the other thing that we almost are like jaded in is that like we're not the only team that has looked like crap for the last 2 years. Like there are plenty of teams out there that look like crap, and even teams that I look at somebody like the Islanders who plummeted this year, and I still think the Islanders actually have a pretty good team, but like they can't run that back again. And
Lamoriello plans on it, I think.
That's
he's captain run it back, man.
But there's plenty of teams out there that are going to be looking to shake it up, and I think John put it right. It's like we can't come back with everything intact and just 1 or 2 different plays. We're not 1 or 2 pieces away. We're kind of all right. Let's throw it into the Yahtzee cup and see where this thing comes out. Unfortunately, that's sort of where we are right now.
If you've got the assurance that Ryan Ellis is going to come back 100% healthy, do you risk it and see what Provorov and Ellis can do together for an elongated period of time?
I do. If you have a guarantee that Ellis is back and like reasonably healthy, but like we don't have that.
Right.
And that's why it's sheerly hypothetical.
Right.
We don't know. The guy doesn't even know if he's getting surgery yet or not.
Sure.
I mean, I said this last week. It's so bad that this whole defensive core is make or break based on Ellis right now, which that can't be. I do think Cam York has stepped up a little bit and has shown at least third pairing potential, and like he should be in the NHL. But
absolutely,
I don't like that. I don't like it.
What do you think, Hoagie? Have you, if Ellis is healthy, and we have that assurance, are you running it back with that top pairing?
only if he's healthy, which I don't think he will be. Just based on the fact that we don't know if he's going to get surgery. Like I have no confidence in training, development, what have you. Chuck Fletcher, I have no confidence whatsoever that Elson's going to be 100% for opening night next year.
You know, in my mind, right, if I'm Chuck Fletcher, I think a lot of us, when we're talking about Provorov, we're going like trading defenseman for defenseman. Let's get somebody. What if Chuck Fletcher goes the other way and is like, you know what? I want to see if I can get somebody who scores goals, right? I use Provorov in a pick to go and get maybe a younger guy where the cap hit isn't big yet, but can, and I don't even know who this player is. I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there. But then it's like, then I'll use whatever money that's kind of left over to go ahead and fill the D. But maybe he uses that as he's flat out said that they need goal scoring. They need somebody who has that kind of top end talent aspect to him, where maybe you throw in a Provorov and a pick and you get somebody like that.
There's other bullets in the chamber for that too. If you want to use Provorov to get offense, you could use a guy like TK to get defense. So I mean, you're essentially flip flopping now, value wise.
Blew my mind.
Right? But no, it's a risk. It's a big risk because in terms of value, in my opinion at least, I think Provorov holds much more value than Konechny does at this point. But roll the dice, throw him in the Yahtzee cup.
But if you could get a goal scorer, something that this team has desperately needed for Ivan Provorov, you do it.
100%.
Would it be fair to say we try to go out and get Johnny Gaudreau before free agency happens? Like what type of deal would that look like?
You want to trade Provorov for his
rights?
For the rights? That's like a 5th round pick deal.
That's a 2024 third.
Yeah, we paid a 5th for Kevin Hayes' rights. Like this is a 3rd or 2nd at best.
It ain't Ivan Provorov. I'm sorry, buddy. You should know.
Throwing him out there.
No, but you do bring up an interesting point.
I didn't even want to say it because I knew I'd get that type of reaction.
But look at it this way
That's a ridiculous statement.
look at the draft picks that we've compiled at this point. I mean, we have plenty of artillery to look at and say, okay, who can we do that with now? Like what we did with Kevin Hayes a couple years back.
Right.
Who can we trade a 3rd round pick for, a 4th round pick for their exclusive negotiating rights? Like it's not a bad idea, but it's also a risk. You run the risk of sending away a pick that could be used for somebody, God knows who, Joe Schmo out of, whatever.
Seattle.
And they might not even sign here, so it's very risky, but, could be worth it.
If we want to give Chuck a little bit of credit, though, using that formula, he has signed. So, like, he did it with Kevin Hayes, he signed. He did it, it was longer term, but he did it with Ristolainen and played a healthy premium. And he ended up signing Ristolainen, much to the dismay of half the fan base. But, if I'm confident in Chuck about one thing, it is that, like, okay, if he has the ability to sign some of these guys that he paid a premium for, he's trying to do it.
For sure.
Right.
Absolutely. Now, we'd be remiss to obviously discuss Travis Sanheim here. I feel like we haven't touched on him at all. But in your...
Well, Derek, you never really stated your opinion. Are you of the same mind that it's Provorov?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I honestly holds more value than Sanheim. And it's not necessarily a knock on Sanheim. I think Sanheim's been playing pretty well for quite some time now. But a guy like Provorov, I look at it as, even though he's had altogether a rough type season, we're seeing now him, I'm not going to say come into his own, but playing much better. And if he can maintain that level of play until the end of the year, that leaves a much sweeter taste in everybody's mouth. Chuck Fletcher looks at it and says his value's higher than it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
I can get more for him. Other GMs look at him and say that's the type of play I can expect, as opposed to the play we saw the first 50 games of the year. So, worth the risk, honestly. I think Provorov nets you a much bigger return. It's a better deal.
Right. I mean, to kind of switch to Travis Sanheim, I think one of the reasons that you keep him is because he's proving to be competent enough. I mean, I kind of debate on whether or not he's a top 4 defenseman on a good hockey team. But for right now, I think he's the safer bet. And like I've said, if they stink again next year, it's blow up mode. And he has no more, like, next year is his last year on his contract. So it's just the safer move because you really don't know if this team is going to turn it around. And I think that one eye has to be on like past that. Like, what if we fail again?
Right. He's incredibly movable at the deadline. Like that.
Right.
Oh, yeah. His contract, too, almost acted as a stopgap until a guy like Cam York was ready to go for the NHL. So people anticipated that right off the bat. It was kind of like when they signed – who was it? I like Haig or Braun, and everybody thought, oh, that's just the bridge until a guy like Morin is ready to go, or a guy like
that worked out.
Yeah, and it worked out. Paid off in spades.
I really did like Sam Morin in his game. It's just a shame. But
it is, and I mean that guy likely is gone by the end of the year too, because
Former
this is the
left
last year of his contract.
Stop
Yeah, the left wing Sam Morin. In terms of Sanheim, though, Nashville just went up with about a little over a minute left in the game. Awesome.
Yep.
so that's our MO. That's our MO.
Emotional damage.
Woohoo! No, your thoughts on this, Matt Casey?
As everyone said, I think that Sanheim has played in pretty impressive the last couple weeks, and you've just seen his confidence skyrocket. I also look at it in, he continues to be paired with Ristolainen. They just signed Ristolainen to, a long-term contract. I think they like what they're seeing with that, and obviously year in, year out, pairings get shaken up a bit. But I don't think that quote-unquote middle pairing is the one that's under fire. I think our third pairing is a train wreck. Our first pairing
what is our third pairing?
our third pairing is a revolving door of
guys capable of playing left wing on the fourth line.
right. The first line, the first pairing just isn't there, and so the second pairing has to pick up more. And also, I'll give Provorov a little bit of props. Like, he's trying to carry too much, and he has been for a couple of years now.
Sure.
So, but I mean, I have no problem with keeping Sanheim. I think he's played well. I think he has a unique skill set. And I think he's a pretty good player at a reasonable cap hit. What I also think we've set the standard for what a middle pairing salary is going to be with Ristolainen. And in Sanheim's world, I think you're waiting to see. You don't sign anything this year, even if they come this offseason, even if they come to you. You see how this the first half of the season goes, and then you start negotiating, because if Flyers end up doing really well, then you get more. If not, then you know what? You go on the trade market, you get the hell out of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Hoagie, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, Sanheim's the easy pick right there to keep on for next season. Season doesn't go our way. Easy contract to move at the deadline. Help shore up somebody's bottom or middle pairing, bottom pairing for a run. And like Casey said, like if he doesn't sign in this offseason and he has a really good season, the team's starting to go back on the up and up. He'll get paid in the offseason of 2023 if he still wants to stay around. He might just test those waters just to dip his toe. But I think if he really wants to stay with Philadelphia, he'll get a payday just like Risto did. Just a nice little bump up.
It was an interesting point that you brought up, Ristolainen's contract, 5.1 per year or whatever. It does kind of set the standard because Sanheim's going to have a basis now. A lot of people obviously, are glowing about Sanheim and they look at Ristolainen like he's the second coming of Doug Glatt the first time he ever hit the ice.
It's a movie, Casey.
It's a movie. It's called Goon.
That's a good one. You actually should watch it. It's with it's with Stifler.
Yeah.
Sean, now
Scott. But I mean, think about it. You're going to be paying essentially your
Daniel Day-Lewis of C-level movies.
You're paying a second pairing a combined upwards of $10 million. So then automatically you look, let's say, it's Provorov and Ellis is healthy. He's not on long-term injured reserve. That's a $13 million cap hit, if not a little bit more. That right there is $23 million, over a quarter of what
Derek with the
your
math.
cap room is. So, I mean, it's a hefty price to pay for a defense that honestly to this point has done nothing to impress anyone. Now you could attribute it to the fact that we have a piss poor third pairing, but at the end of the day, it sucks. Our goalies are getting hung out to dry. Our offense can't create any type of chances because they can't get it out of their own zone because the defense is putrid. I have little faith in whatever decision is being made that this defense is going to have some type of drastic improvement that I'm going to look at and say, I have full confidence in these guys. And then going back to even like Provorov, you've never really seen him with a bona fide, in our case, number 2, because he's our number 1. Travis Sanheim for a year, Gostisbehere for a year, Justin Braun for way longer than whatever should have been. You haven't Matt Niskanen for 1 year. Yeah, like you've seen him with Matt Niskanen, and it was great, fantastic, and that was the plan. Bring in Ryan Ellis, he's going to act like the Matt Niskanen. We haven't seen him, so I'm like, I hate to say that I'm sitting on the fence, but like I'm reluctant because I want to see him with Ryan Ellis. I want, even if it's not Ryan Ellis and it's somebody else, like Ellis is like, I need to retire. I'm too hurt. I'll never get better. Bring in somebody else.
No, you find a team that is thinking the same way you're thinking right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just feel like with Provorov, if we were in a different position as an organization, we're having a different conversation. But this is a team that drastically needs a change. And they really can't afford another year of, well, he just didn't have the guy next to him.
Right.
They can't afford it. So you're hoping that a team is thinking the same way you are, Derek, and going, if I put him with a competent person, I've got a great pairing, and they're going to pay for him.
But where are you going to, and this is, again, going down a rabbit hole we don't have the time for, but you got to find the perfect pair. You got to find the perfect team to go to and say.
I think you find other teams that have been underperforming these past few years. Like Casey said, the Flyers aren't the only one. I'm not really sure what Vancouver has, but they're a team that I expect is going to be quite active. Winnipeg might be another team that's active. Like
Ottawa. Ottawa's on the cusp. I mean, even a team.
Ottawa's got just a ton of young guys.
Right.
You're right, but you bring in a guy like Provorov, who is somewhat of a veteran. Giroux signs there in the offseason. Who knows? But even a team like LA has so much young talent. Their blue line is, again, not a big Kings guy, but they're kind of meh.
You could throw out any Western team right now and be like, yeah, absolutely.
Yep,
like,
sure.
I have no
Anaheim,
idea.
sure. San Jose, absolutely.
I just think,
why not?
Look at teams that have also underperformed and that are looking for a shakeup, and I think that that's where your answer lies.
Good.
And it might not just be.
Chicago.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Chicago. How much did they just pay Jones? 9?
A lot of money.
10?
Way too much.
So you have 2 players locked up for $16 million on their on the back end. Like that's
right, and they're a team that's probably going to trade Patrick Kane. Like that conversation is.
And DeBrincat, apparently.
And DeBrincat. Provorov for DeBrincat right there. Lock it in.
If Chicago would take that deal, I would do it in a heartbeat.
They won't. They absolutely won't.
But I absolutely would.
Yeah, of course we would.
I mean, realistically, think about it. You're right. Much to all three of your points, this is kind of a one or the other. Like, I don't see both of these guys being on the team past next year, even maybe the deadline. Like, I don't know, depending on what they do with Sanheim. But we also listened to Chuck Fletcher's press conference right after Drew was traded. There was a lot of framework, apparently, that was built for deals in the summer at the trade deadline. And he's no stranger to that. That's how the Ellis deal happened. So this makes me think, at least, and maybe you guys are all in the same boat, maybe there are some teams out there that are looking to acquire Provorov. I should say there absolutely are some teams that are looking to get him.
Yep.
And maybe that framework's been laid. And maybe there's a deal that, things are going to get ironed out here. And we see it around draft time. Who knows? I think that's their best route in terms of getting their value back, because you can still deal Sanheim and he'll likely fetch you a solid return at the deadline next year if things go sideways, if this team completely lays an egg next year like it did this year.
I can't do it 3 years in a row. Like I don't know if I'll be able to handle it.
This podcast will be no more. There will be nothing to talk about. It'll be us just with shitty 90 movies reference.
We'll do countdown to our 2024 picks.
This is your weekly reminder that there are 643 days until we make our third round pick. Goodbye.
We're bringing back the Pod Street prospects to watch that kid
reprising Pod Street prospects. We'll have to reprise Pod Street prospects.
Yep.
But
all
right,
John, you're looking like either you've got a thought or a fart.
No. When we've been talking about like one or the other, I've also had that same thought process with Provorov and Konechny, because I always viewed them as like the young core, right? Yeah. Like they were supposed to be the next wave, and I in my head was like, if we really wanted to shake things up, like one of them would need to go and fetch something large, right? And not like someone large, but like something substantial.
Not like a Pat Maroon.
And I'm more and more of the mindset where I kind of want to hold on to Konechny. I've really liked what he's been able to do, and I do think that he's kind of stepped up in Giroux's absence, which sample size, I get it. But there's something there where I'm like, again, if it was one or the other, and I know they're different positions, but if it was one or the other, I'm still dealing Provorov at this point.
I brought this up in the high and wide chat earlier this week. Think about it in terms of where you work, who your boss is.
Right.
Your boss leaves. There's always that one person or two people, sometimes in some cases, that will step up in their absence and essentially fill their shoes.
Right.
We're seeing that currently with guys like Kevin Hayes. He's got 7 points in his last 4 games. You're seeing that with guys like Konechny as well. We're starting to see these guys that we thought would have rounded that corner by now finally starting to potentially come into their own.
Where it's almost like, okay, he's gone and it's my time. Which
Exactly.
I'm not saying that it has anything to do with a negative towards Claude Giroux, but it's like they've kind of viewed it as, okay, he's gone and it's now our opportunity to these are our Flyers now.
Yeah. Never an indictment on Giroux. Never an indictment on the person or player, teammate
at some point just to piss somebody off.
Maybe,
Giroux was always the safety net where it was like, okay, Claude will take care of it. And like a lot of times he did. And but now it's like he's not there. Dad's not there anymore. We gotta go buy beer by ourselves.
All the Coke we can.
Like, man, I can't just take my dad's pot anymore. I got to go out and get my own. Am I the only one? Cool. Awesome. Well, it's been a few years, but whatever. Great points, though, aside from my own right there. But you're seeing players that are going to step up. And I think by the end of the season, we will have a much clearer picture as to who those guys are, which is why, we'll get into it probably next week here with Kevin Hayes. We planned on wanting to discuss him, but that's a much bigger discussion than for the time that we have left. Just we want to give that the respect it deserves. But these guys we're seeing step up are going to be part of the future. And I think that Kevin Hayes could end up being a guy that we stick it out until the end of his contract, as opposed to trying to offload him like we're trying to do with JVR now, because let's be honest, JVR kind of sucks right now. There's no two ways about it.
Just now?
Well, not right now, because he's had goals in consecutive games. He's been playing all right, but
can I ask this hypothetically?
I don't know, can you?
May I?
So Seattle has said that they're willing to take on contracts for picks, basically.
Give it to them.
Like what's a realistic, what do we have to give them to offload JVR?
Give them both third-round picks acquired at the deadline for 2023. I don't care.
Do you remember what Shane Gossespear fetched?
Right.
A second and a seven?
I think
Wait.
it wasn't. It wasn't like. I
was
think
the
it was
second
more
round.
than that, wasn't it? I mean, there was a second rounder in that for sure.
Right.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
in
to
my
me-
mind, like this whole quote unquote retool has to start with getting rid of at least one of these big salaries, and I don't think it's going to be Kevin Hayes.
Right.
It was a second and a seventh.
So like
it was more
if
than
it's a third and a sixth for JVR, like I'm doing it. Like I'm
Sure.
I'm getting that out of here.
Absolutely.
Because and then especially if you put Provorov in his cap hit out, but then you're bringing some in as assuming you're bringing some in. But I don't
You
know.
free yourself up to go after some of the big fish in free agency. Now, whether they want to come here or not is another discussion. But
Still
you
throw the
have
money.
the cap flexibility. Yeah,
Right.
exactly, Hoagie.
Throw the money around.
Then you can put what's his name, Provorov up for negotiating rights for Johnny Gaudreau.
God. I mean, Hoagie, you've said a lot of
Come on.
dumb things. That might have been the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Like
I
I'm
was
not
gonna
very
say.
good at like the draft capital stuff, but even I knew.
Guys,
that
I
was-
figured it out. I've cracked the code. Let's trade Ivan Provorov to Calgary
I'm
for
trying.
for
buy
Johnny
high,
Gaudreau's
buy
right.
high and sell low. That works.
I
Well,
was trying.
I figured
Oh,
no
suck.
better time than this. Speaking of jokes, Hoagie, you want to give us your dad joke, man? Did you have
yeah,
time to get
somebody
your dad
sleep.
joke?
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. It's
Never do.
you've really gotta hand it to blind prostitutes.
No one else gets this? Come on. Come on, guys.
now I get it.
Seriously. Oh, never fails. Never fails. Always a good laugh. Unless you're John.
John, do you wanna explain it?
Nope.
You haven't explained one of his dad jokes in weeks, man. I'm beginning to really lose faith.
That's okay. I'm not.
All right.
Nope.
He's not
then.
even touching it.
Mm-mm.
Kind of like a blind prostitute. But yes. Anyways, Matt Casey, where are they going to be able to find you, man?
Hey, I'm over at Twitter at PodStreetCasey. You can find it at PodStreetCasey. That's CASEY on the Twitter. Thank you.
Hoagie.
Pod Street Hogs on that Twitter app.
You are so dumb. You really just should shut up.
One of us is going to have to take care of Hoagie's handle on Twitter from now on.
For you and JVR out back with your buddies.
Oh boy. From now on, Hoagie gets the dad joke. That's it. He just sits in silence for the rest of the show,
Just
nodding.
make the banners and do the dad joke.
I like it.
We're going to have to revise your contract with us. Ish. All right, John.
Well, I mean, you can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles, included but not limited to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts. That's a thing, yeah.
Castbox.
Castbox, iHeartRadio.
Pod Muncher.
I love doing the iHeartRadio
Muncher.
because Casey's got a thing against iHeartRadio.
I work at their rival company. Yeah.
Oh,
No one listens to iHeartRadio anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, nobody listens to iHeartRadio anymore.
No shit.
All right.
iHeart Rodeo? Did you just say iHeart Rodeo?
Yeah, iHeartRadio. No one listens
It's
to that.
a Texas thing.
Yeah.
Oh, good God.
All right. Anyway, yeah. And if
Yeah.
you don't like any of those places, Google us.
Yeah. Otherwise, check out our affiliates over at Flyers High and Wide. The other guys over
If you
at
don't like us, try out our affiliates.
Fat Chance. And no, I'm kidding. 5 Minute Major as well. Congrats to Dave on getting officially married this weekend. Congrats, buddy. And then otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at PodStreetBob. You can find John on Twitter at PodStreetGove. You can find all four of us dipshits on Twitter at PodSTBullies. And folks, that is it for us for the week. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Try to enjoy watching the Flyers play hockey.
Bye now.
Scene.